Thank you, thank you, Pradnya, and thank you, Ujjwal. So, folks, this is like a super quick summary of different things that are happening. One, I think Ujjwal provided some good oversight on how the industry at large is using geospatial data. And then Pradnya kind of covered a couple of use cases where we are using them in Swiggy. I want to spend some time kind of going through some of the questions that have come in. We obviously haven't been able to go into a lot of detail here because of the time, but the intent of this exercise was to trigger a set of questions and then hopefully keep this conversation going. So in that context, let's take a few questions and talk about what you have. So I'm going through some of the questions. So one of the question here is, what is some of the business use cases for location data at Swiggy? As Pradnya already covered a couple of use cases, but one of the significant use case we have is essentially the delivery promise that you get. So when you order food on Swiggy, we give you a minute level accurate promise. So we say it's 35 minutes to get your food. And the promise that comes out there is actually a pretty complex set of algorithms that run over the geospatial data that we have. So there are two pieces involved in the food being delivered. One is the travel time that the driver takes to go from their location to the restaurant, and then from the restaurant to the customer's house. And then we also have the food prep time that the restaurant needs to be able to prepare the food. So while the food prep time is something that we predict separately, for the travel time, we use historical location ping data that we gather over time, and we use this information to then run ML models that use this time series data to make prediction on the travel time for the upcoming order. And as you can understand, the travel time also varies. So the time required to travel at 9 p.m. at night in Bangalore may be very different from the time required to travel at, say, 9 a.m. Similarly, the time required on the weekend is different from the time required on the weekday. So our geospatial data is also in some sense, a LSTM-based model where we have built deep learning models to be able to predict the time basis a combination of long-term, short-term memory models, where the long-term is the average you have of the time and location data over multiple orders. And then the short term is the more recent set of data that we have, which may be the last 1 hour, the last 2 hour information that we use. And basis that, we predict the ETA or the time for delivery. And that's one example of a pretty significant use case. We have a bunch of models there, ranging from regular models to all the way to deep learning models that we have built out. So one question, and maybe this question is for Pradnya, in terms of the data itself, how do we manage variability in the data points, especially when you have large systems at scale? How do you manage the variability between GPS data?
Sure. So that's a great question. And in fact, that's one of the reasons that I was talking about sort of some of the outliers and stuff that we are eliminating right at the start. So it's a combination of eliminating outliers as well as looking at not just one GPS ping at a time, but a collection, right? So this could be in real time, meaning the sequence of GPS pings, or say if you are estimating the customer location, right? Accuracy of the customer location, whether it was, if we are clustering that, then we look at more than say 10 data points before we can determine accurately that this is the location, right? So it's a combination of history as well as current sequence of things.
One thing that I can also add here is one of the projects we did was to figure out how to map, how to cluster ping locations together so that we can remove variability. For example, if you have 20 drivers all delivering to a specific address, because of the GPS variability, you do have the pings that are coming from different points on the map. And we've done what is essentially an unsupervised learning approach, which is the equivalent of maybe a k-means clustering algorithm that allows us to cluster data points together. So we can identify that if there are 5 or 10 different points which are slightly in a cluster, what is that specific point that this driver is at. And this allows us to eliminate some of the variability in the GPS data itself. So there are different ways. The other use case also there is around trying to interpolate data that's missing. Sometimes you have GPS being turned off, maybe the driver's phone is no longer active, maybe the battery died, maybe certain areas they don't have GPS coverage. So you also have to figure out how do you interpolate the missing ping data that comes between those 2 points. And there we have to look back at history, and we look back at other drivers that may have traveled on the same path, and then using that data to be able to understand what ping locations should have come from this driver. So there's a lot of complexity there in trying to essentially kind of understand where we have missing pings and replace those missing pings based on historical data. One question for Ujjwal. We talked about multipath problems. Pradnya covered that as part of her example. But Ujjwal, in your experience in India, do you see this as a common problem? Is multipath a problem in India, or is it just specifically focused on maybe some parts of the country?
Yeah, I think in India there is a kind of different kind of problem because we have very dense cities. So when the road width is narrow, and even though the buildings are not very tall, you can experience some of that. So there is not a clear line of sight always through a narrow lanes. So that is kind of another variant of this multipath problem that you can exhibit. And of course, in the kind of urban cores where we have tall buildings, we have the similar problems. Pradnya, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, sure. So the other aspect here is that, especially in urban environments, so business parks, apartment complexes and stuff are also pretty dense, and there are quite a few tall buildings there. So, and many of our deliveries do occur there. So we've seen these kind of issues over there.
Some interesting maybe Pradnya for you, and we can see how much you can get into the details, but how does the Swiggy map model look overall, especially the data model? So questions around maybe how it's modeled in terms of the schema.
Oh, wow. Okay. That is quite interesting. So sure. So see, basically when we are looking at road, right? So there's the map model for the address accuracy itself, and then there's the map model for the road itself, right? So how are roads built in or represented in our data structures, right? So each road segment with, or rather, if we take a single road, we break it up into segments, and each road segment is a node in our graph. And we basically have a sort of directed graph in some sense to figure out the road network. And in fact, many of the open source models are also pretty similar, and we use some of that for our purposes as well. And in fact, even for the routing on top of that, we use many open source data structures, and these are also very similar. So the road itself will be represented as a directed graph. You want me to go?
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of detail there.
Yeah.
We'll have to cover it in a deep dive, but you can, as building on what Pradnya said, it's also trying to model the different hierarchies, the layers that you may have in geospatial data. You have a geographic layer, and then you also have a layer of the locations, so places, what we call points of interest, and then each point of interest has metadata around it. So you can imagine a point of interest being a mall, and a mall has metadata like the entrance of the mall, the parking lot, and so on and so forth. And so essentially what we try to do with the map data is to eventually aggregate cluster map data into points of interest, where we can identify a residential complex or an office building or a commercial establishment like a restaurant to be a point of interest. And then using the location data that we get, we identify metadata about it. So we try to figure out what should be the entrance from where the driver should come, because that is the most important point of entry for that driver for that specific location. Or we try to figure out which is the parking lot that the driver should go to park their bike when coming at a mall. And that's an example of when you kind of build layers over the data that you have and kind of incrementally augment the data model. One of the interesting projects we've also done a POC on here is to use a combination of GPS data and the Android activity sensor data to be able to identify if a driver is moving or if a driver is stopped. And so when you think about the geospatial use case, you also have to consider the data itself changes when a driver is driving on a bike versus when a driver is walking through the building. So when they reach the gate of the building and start walking, the ping accuracy and the frequency and the number of pings we get vary basis the fact that they are now covering less distance versus when they were covering more distance on the bike. And so you also have to adjust for that. And so what we started to do is to instrument the driver app to be able to identify the motion signals from Android to know when the driver has gone from an active state to a stopped state, and use that to flip a transition in understanding the location data also. So interesting use cases. I think as we get into more details, we obviously will talk about this more. Maybe a couple of more questions. One question for you, Ujjwal, talking about how do we map cities? Other examples in India where people have used satellite imagery to map cities and understand geospatial information?
Yeah, so satellite imagery is the primary means of mapping. And what you get out of the satellite imagery is you know what the road geometry looks like, what the buildings look like, what some of the features look like, but you can't really derive any attribute information out of it. So you don't know what the road name, what's the turn restrictions, what the building is called for. So again, that satellite imagery solves only part of the problem. What has kind of changed recently is that the imagery resolutions have improved and the accuracies have improved. So a lot of the small areas are now mapped in much more detail using drones. And primarily what you can do is you can get much higher details. So you can kind of see where the sidewalks, where are the road crossings. You can kind of see some of the infrastructure points on the map. So again, you can derive more information out of the map through satellite imagery by improved resolution. And I think everybody, including a government, they use imagery as a starting point for mapping, but then they have to supplement it with some field information. And you can either drive a car and collect imagery data, extract stuff from it, or you do a field survey. So that is how the imagery is being used.
Great. Very interesting. We actually, in the last Gigabytes session that we had, we did have a talk by one of the startups in India that is using drone technology. And they were giving a very fascinating presentation of how using drones, they've been able to map out the roads within, say, very dense areas in India. And it's a very social use case. The use case they were looking at is how do we help these areas get access to, say, an ambulance when you need the help. And today, when an ambulance needs to enter a very crowded area, they may enter a road where they cannot move because the road is too narrow, or maybe there are blockages on the road and they cannot progress. And so with drones, you're able to take a very high resolution imagery of dense areas in India, and then use this to build a map of the area, which you can then even feed to emergency services like an ambulance and help guide them through a crowded area in a time of need. So very interesting use cases. Obviously goes beyond food delivery, goes a lot beyond what we're talking here.
And just to follow up on that, I think what drone also enables is you can put different kind of sensors. So people put LiDAR, laser sensors on that. And what that gives you is like an accurate 3D model of the city. So that can be used for doing all kind of things like what Pratnya talked about. If you want to do multipath, you want to do 3D model of the city. If you want to do flood modeling, you can use this data to see how the flood would impact. So I think drones enable much more use cases with different kind of aerial sensors than just imagery.
Great. I think one question on terms of the data itself, again, going back to the data quality question, Pratnya, is like, what's the role of maybe humans in being able to help augment and improve data quality? So is this a machine problem or is this a man-machine solution?
Oh, this is a super question. And considering that I was in Google Bangalore while the Google Mapmaker project was being done, and Ujjwal has of course been a part of that as well. There are very parallel or similar styles that we are planning to do in Swiggy as well. So it cannot be a completely text solution, meaning you can't rely on just AI and just the algorithms to fix this data with 100% accuracy, right? So many people, so what Google Mapmaker had done, it had a system of moderation. and it had a huge product ops team as well to help improve and fix the data. What we are planning in Swiggy as well is a product ops team which is partially in-house to fix some of this data. But we also have this excellent network of 2 lakh drivers all over India, which we can take help of from them. They are sort of our feet on street ops in some sense, right? So most of the time, yes, they are doing the deliveries for food or now groceries and stuff. But what we can use them for is for verification of some of these, say, point of interest polygons or road mappings that we have come up in an automated way. So what we can do is, say, up to 80% accuracy or something, we can just use that data directly. But the last 10 to 20% where we need a pair of eyes to sort of validate these results in some sense, we plan to sort of push them to the delivery people, and they can during their idle times go map, so, say, a parking spot or entry gate or a point of interest polygon, or drive on a road that we want to map, right? We can't, like Dale said in the previous question, that we can't rely on just one GPS ping trace to map out a road. We need multiple such traces to have good confidence in that. So can we use them during their idle times to map out the road more accurately? So it will be a combination of these automated systems that we are building, and the in-house product ops and the delivery feet on street product ops in some sense.
Great, great. Another interesting question on the same side, and maybe I'll throw it to Ujjwal here. What additional data sources are used to augment map data? For example, one question was specific on the GRADS data for rainfall and temperature. And can we use this information or any other external data sets to be able to better understand the geospatial data we are getting?
Yeah, I think one kind of interesting source of data for geospatial is the local data, business data, right? And this is kind of data that is not easily available. And the stat says about 25% of businesses close every year and the new business is added. So how do you determine that? So there are a lot of interesting approaches people use. For example, I saw some case study where people were looking at credit card accounts and kind of looking at the addresses there and say what accounts are closing and what accounts are opening for billing, and using that to supplement the geospatial data. So again, geospatial data, you cannot restrict yourself to geospatial medium. There are a whole bunch of data that can be used, but you have to look beyond geospatial and integrate data to improve your map accuracy. And of course, you can use the weather data that are public domain satellite data that can be used. For another example is there are public domain satellites like Landsat and Sentinel. They cover the Earth, their history going back 30 years, and they cover the Earth very regularly. So you can use it to derive large research. For example, you can determine which areas are water or which is a park, and you can extract those and monitor them so that every month you can update which areas are water, if the lakes are shrinking, if the rivers have changed course. So all this can be extracted and updated automatically. But again, the geospatial, again, you have to look much beyond and see what other kind of data you can extract to enrich your map.
Got it. Great. One question on the algorithm side. Are there examples of Swiggy using unsupervised learning algorithms for this? And I think we covered one example where we're using unsupervised learning algorithms for being able to cluster driver ping locations to identify what is the right point where the drivers have to go to. We just talked about that. Another example of where we are using clustering algorithms is also trying to identify demand hotspots. So if you can think about, we've talked a lot about the driver use case, but the mapping data is also very relevant to the restaurants and the business use case, where if a new restaurant wants to be able to understand where are the hotspots of customer demand. So if I want to launch a new restaurant in, say, South Delhi, now which location will be the location that has the maximum amount of customers that meet my need, right? And that's an interesting question, because without that, you end up in the wrong location and you end up not getting access to the customers who you really want to go after. One of the projects we've done with some of our restaurant partners is to use a combination of the location data as well as the customer buying data to be able to give them this insight. So what we do there is we take the location pings of where the customers are all located from their address information, and we cluster them into these essentially tight clusters, what we call then demand zones. And then we also further apply a level of saying within for the customers in those demand zones, what kind of customers are there? So then there we match the customer profile in terms of the kind of cuisine they like, in terms of the kind of shopping patterns they have with the restaurants that want to sell there. And so it's a combination of location data being clustered along with applying additional insights around the customer buying patterns to be able to then give a recommendation to the restaurant that this location in South Delhi may be the great place for you to set up your new kitchen because you've got the right customers who are looking for that selection. There's a very interesting use case, lots of different use cases. As you can think through, this is not just about delivery. This is about trying to use intelligence that we've gathered from the ground and use this in helping people plan essentially anything that is related to physical locations. And that's another example there. I think we are pretty much have covered all the questions we had. There was, I think, a question around the drivers. How do we plan to use the drivers? And I think Pradnya talked about how we can use them in their free time to be able to provide insights and manually provide more data. There was also questions that we covered around the scale. And we talked about how we use this for planning our promise. So yeah, I think guys, I think we are at a point where we've covered most of the important questions. There obviously are probably a ton of this. As I said, this is a lot to be able to process. It's just an hour. But really the intent of this webinar was to spark the thought in your mind around an interesting domain, a super relevant domain for India. And as you can think about it with Swiggy, as we start to build this data set and we've collected millions and millions of kilometers mapped out over time, this becomes an asset that you can then build any number of use cases on. And you know, as some of you have also called out in some of your comments, could also be an asset for the long term where you can provide this as a service to other agencies and other institutions. So definitely that is something that we are super excited about. Pradnya is leading the location intelligence tech for us. And we are building out a fully fledged team of scientists, of engineers, of analysts who are going to be working on being able to mine our data and extract insights from this. So we'll definitely learn a lot more as we go along. We'd love to share more with you through subsequent webinars. In the meanwhile, if you're also interested in learning more, have specific questions, feel free to reach out to our panelists, Ujjwal and Pradnya. They're both amazing in their experience and two strong deep tech leaders in India who I think we'll all benefit from. That said, I want to thank everybody for taking the time on a Saturday to attend this. It's just great to see the learning culture and how people are spending time to learn and improve themselves. It's super exciting to know that we're all coming together to share knowledge and build on this. We will have more of these webinars. We will also have different topics that we will cover as we start to just kind of unravel the tech behind hyperlocal. So stay tuned. There's a lot more happening. And thank you again for dialing in. Thank you again to my panelists, Pradnya and Ujjwal. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate coming here and sharing your perspective. And thank you to the organizers for setting up this entire webinar and webcast. Have a great rest of your week, guys, and stay safe, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.